I am Elle from cleverlychanging.com. I'm here with Zarifa Robertson, the founder and CEO of I.D.E.A.L magazine. Zarifa, tell my readers a little bit about yourself and how you started this magazine almost 10 years ago.
Well, that's a great question. I am a person with a disability. I was born with osteoarthritis, multiplex congenital. I know that's a lot for a lot of people out there. I just say the acronym is AMC, like the movie theater. So I kind of like just say AMC, like the movie theater. And it's a form of arthritis. It affects my entire body through all my joints and my muscles. But the interesting thing about me, I'm very independent. So I drive a car with no adaptive technology or car modification. I used to live on a third floor apartment. I know people always, my girlfriends used to always joke with me and say, oh, that lives on the third floor. 'Cause I would literally walk up like 2 or 3 flights of steps just to get to my apartment. But I had to explain to them I didn't want to be on the bottom and I didn't want to be on the second. I just want to be on the third, so I don't have to worry about no one making noise above me or below me. So they're like, oh, interesting. That's a good way of looking at it. So I started the magazine about 10 years ago, like you said, and I was actually outside of Philly in a place called Abington, Pennsylvania. I was actually studying for my LSAT exam at Barnes and Noble. And I took a break. I love magazines. I love Cosmopolitan. I love Ebony. I love Essence. I love Style. I love Beauty. I love all different types of magazines. So when I went over to the magazine rack, I noticed that there wasn't any magazines for people with disabilities. And I said, this is interesting. So then I went home and I did my research, and I found out there were a plethora of magazines for people with disabilities, but nothing spoke to the young college student with a disability, the high school student that's in high school, how they handle being a young person with a disability, as well as the working professional with a disability. We really didn't have a voice out there that was talking about some of the issues and some of the challenges that we face on a daily basis. And that's one of the things that I started the magazine based on that platform, to give us a voice for young people with disability, and most of all for people of color with a disability. Because I feel as though when you live in an urban area or you're someone of color, that includes white people, I feel as though that our voice kind of gets unheard. It gets thrown to the back burner. We're not really out there in mainstream telling our stories, or being out there in the front lines that's expressing how we are in our society.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one of the reasons why I started I.D.E.A.L magazine, to give us that platform, that voice, for us to actually talk about issues like, for example, sexuality, education, employment, working in the work world. When it comes to family issues, a lot of people that I know, like myself, in their immediate family, they're the only person that has a disability, and you're like, hold up, where did I fall in line with this? No one in my immediate family has a disability, but I happen to be the lucky one that has this disability. Where does this come from? And that could be a little bit frustrating as well. You feel like you're isolating. You can't actually talk to someone. And the interesting thing about myself, like I talked to you, Elle, I'm a twin, and my twin sister does not have a disability. So I met a lot of twins that actually sometimes both of the twins have a disability, and then sometimes one of the twins have a disability and the other one doesn't. So, for me, I know it was like when I was growing up, I said, God, why do you put me like this? Why can't I just be normal like my sister? I feel like I'm just like, I'm always slower than her. I can't do as much as she can. I feel like people look at me differently. And a big issue that we try to talk about is like relationships, like dating and
Mhm.
being sexually active, because a lot of people feel as though people with disabilities, oh, we shouldn't be sexually active, we shouldn't have a relationship, and I'm just like, even though we have a disability, we are still human, and we still want to be
Right.
loved, and there's still that affection. And sometimes I think
Right.
people get caught up on the disability. They forget that we have needs and sexual needs just like anyone else, with or without a
Right.
disability.
Right. Right. Well, what you're saying brings me into my next question, because if somebody sees your magazine, it showcases a lot of different illnesses. It's not just one disability. It's very diverse. The
Yeah.
magazine shows different illnesses, different types of people, different types of challenges. So what inspired you to share information from about a wide range of disabilities? Because the magazine talks about a lot of different things.
Yes, yes. And that's a good question. I always feel as though there are so many different people out there living with disability, and each person with a disability, even if they have the same disability, for example, like someone that has lupus, one of my best friends has lupus. She has her story, but you may meet someone else, they may have lupus, but they may have a different story. So
Mhm.
every individual has a story that they need to share, and I always try to be diverse with our what we put in the magazine, and as well as, I don't know if you know, we have a fashion department, beauty department, health and
Mhm.
fitness, sports, entertainment, and editorial, and all those departments are based around disability. Now,
Mhm.
sometimes like fashion and beauty could be a very mainstream. Even health and fitness can be very mainstream. And they kind of like, even when you look at infomercials on TV, they say, get on this diet, or try this equipment. And I'm just like, obviously they didn't think about people with disabilities, because a lot of people that have different disabilities like diabetes and sickle cell and lupus, they cannot try every diet that's out there, because
Right.
they have to stick to a diet that the doctor says, hey, this is what you need to be on. You cannot do X, Y, and Z. Or even going to a gym, for me, I know having a physical disability, I just cannot walk on up to any equipment and say, hey, let me get on this. No, it's not going to work. It's not going to be beneficial. So I don't really do any of the equipment exercises. I do aqua fitness, which is low impact based on my joints and my disability, and it's in the water. So,
Mhm.
which is great. But the only thing about aqua fitness in the wintertime, when it gets really cold, you're like, I really want to get in the water right now. And you're like,
Right.
it's a mindset as well. So I always have to say, come on, let's put a workout on, because we need this activity for your body. Another activity that I do is Zumba. But while I'm in Zumba, I make sure I tell the instructor, actually already knows I have a physical disability, but I make sure I let them know they're bringing a chair, so if I get tired, I can sit down. So they try to accommodate me, which is great. But going back to the magazine and how I try to tell her on the magazine based on disability. For example, we have the fashion section. In our fashion section, we have a model profile with disabilities. So we feature models with disabilities in our profile every quarter. Then we have a fashion designer with disability profile. So we try to feature fashion designers that have a disability. In the health and fitness section, we have this profile called a personal trainer with disability. There are so many personal trainers with disabilities that are doing great things out there in society. We want them to share their health and fitness routine. Who do they work out? How did they get into the industry? To make sure and provide us with a couple of tips to give to our readers. So that'll be a good way of saying, hey, I can still do some activities at home. So that'll be a great way of giving our readers some some tips to do in the home. So we try to make our magazine, even though it's disability related in our publication, but certain industries, they kind of forget about disabilities, and we try to include the disability industry in all our sections of the magazine.
Okay. Wow. Wow. That's amazing, because I know a lot of people, are interested in that, whether they have a disability or not. So it's great that you're providing that. So November is National Family Caregivers Month, and I know a lot of my readers are parents who may have a child or a spouse with who's living with a disability. Would you have any advice for them on how they can support and care for their loved one who's living with a disability?
It's interesting that you said that, because my dad passed away in February, and before he passed away, he had a stroke, and my mom and I were his caregivers. So my advice to you is to, especially, I don't know what are their disabilities that they're dealing with, but to make sure you spend as much time with the person that you're caring for, but in return, make sure you take care of yourself in return, because it's a lot when you're a caregiver for someone else. My dad was to a point that he could not move anything. He was like paralyzed from his neck down. So we had to feed him. We had to, we didn't bathe him because he was in the hospital, but we had to feed him. We had to blow his nose. We had to wipe his face, because he couldn't do anything. But I looked at it like I wouldn't change what I did for my dad for the world. The last 8 months of his life was a blessing to me. And, I wouldn't change anything what I done for him. So, but in the process of caring for someone, it takes a lot out of that person. Because I felt like when I was home, sometimes all I wanted to do was sleep, because out at the hospital, I would always try to attend to my dad. What do you want? What do you want to watch? And he was like, my eyes itching. Can you scratch my eye? And, it was always something that it was to be done. And I didn't mind doing it, but when I came home or when I went around family members' house, they would ask me if I wanted to go to the movies. And I'm just like, no, I'm tired. I want to go home and sleep. And one of my family members said, yeah, it's a lot taking care of your father, because it's a lot emotionally, it's a lot physically, and now I can you just want to go home and go to sleep. And my family members ended up going out to the movies, and I went home to go to sleep to get some rest for myself. So regardless, and that was my me time. So, I think as a caregiver, even though you love the person that you're caring for, it's really important to take time for yourself as well.
Okay. Wow, that's great advice. The magazine, when you read it, it reads like timeless literature. Many of the information that's shared it's not limited by time, and is good for people to know in general. How do you keep your articles timeless and the information just very helpful for those who are reading it?
We try to stay current on what's going on. As far as the people that we interview, we try to ask them to be as real as possible. Be as open and real as possible, because you never know who may be reading your story, who may be reading the magazine and say, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one that was going through this. And I was just talking to a young man today in Atlanta, Georgia, and he has sickle cell, and he had a stroke on top of the sickle cell because he didn't take care of himself. And then he's originally from New York City, and then he went out to L.A., and he was in a gang in New York City. And when he went out to L.A., he was in the gang in L.A. He got caught up in that street life. I'm like, wow. and I was like, wow, your life should be a movie because that's just interesting. And he was telling me his story. So I always tell people to be as real and as honest as possible because sometimes we get people that say they want to be in a magazine, and when it comes to the interview, they don't want to share anything. And I say that's not gonna do because we want to know. For example, we want to know how do you end up in a wheelchair. We understand you're in a wheelchair, you're a wheelchair user, but what happened to you to get into that wheelchair? Because everyone has a story on what happened to them. Some people got shot just being in a crossfire. Some people was in the gang. Some people had accident within their homes or in a car. So I will always want the nitty gritty. Be truthful and as honest and real with our readers, so our readers can really feel what you went through, and they can get a sense of who you are as a person, living with a disability. So I try to make things, try to make it more real and more open. And I forgot to mention this. In our health and fitness section, we have a vegan writer her name is Priya. Unfortunately, she just resigned from the magazine. She's going back to India, but Priya was wonderful because I don't know if you know this, a lot of Indian people in their culture, a lot of them are vegan because they look at the pig as a nasty animal and the cow as a sicker animal. So a lot of them are vegan. And I notice when people become diagnosed with a disability, sometimes they do research and they find out some of the foods that you eat may be causing more harm than good. So sometimes people change their eating lifestyle and they become vegan. And I thought that was a good way of having Priya in a part of the health and fitness team so she can incorporate some of her recipes because she's a vegan by her culture. And this was great to have this type of resource in our publication, just in case people wanted to try these different recipes for our vegan, for people who decide to become a vegan once they get diagnosed with a disability.
Right. That is a great resource.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you were interviewing someone for the magazine. If someone who's listening, if they're interested, how do you find new people to put in your magazine?
Most people contact me on Facebook or Twitter or Tumblr, through our social media outlets. A lot of people contact me based on, what I post on our social media outlets. And some people contact me through my website. So the website is actually being updated right now. We got rid of the contact page because people were just abusing it. So I want to let my graphic designer know to put my email address on the contact page so people can actually contact me personally, send me an email, and stating that they would like to be in the magazine for upcoming editions. So most of our contacts come through social media outlets. And then I had two people that I met at Rack Fest here in Philadelphia. It's a event, a health and fitness and sporting event for people with disabilities. And two of them contact me personally and say, hey, I would like one actually submitted her a story, and the other person stated he wanted to be interviewed in our publication. So it's sometimes word of mouth, sometimes it's people that I meet in the community, and then most of the time, most of our inquiries come from social media.
Okay, wow. Well, definitely at the end of the call, we're going to give you a chance to share all of those outlets so that people will know exactly how to contact you and stay in touch. What do you want the general public to learn and understand about people living with disability? So kind of what is the mission of I.D.E.A.L magazine?
We want people to have a platform for them to share their stories in our publication, because there's not a platform when it comes to people of color or that young person with a disability or that college student with a disability or that high school student with a disability, because I was there myself. And I know how it feels like to go through college. You know, you pick up an Avenue or Essence magazine. Yes, I'm a black woman, but on top of that, I have a disability. I'm a little bit different. So where's there that publication that speaks to me or to my population, my group of people who are going to college, who are living on campus, who are dealing with accessibility issues? You don't hear about that. So we try to be the disability community. Or I know this has been something that I know that a lot of disability services offices that I have spoken to them about, even spoken to a lot of my friends about. My disability is visible. A lot of people in today's society, their disability is hidden. So when it comes to getting out of high school, going into college, a lot of students with disabilities, especially the ones that are hidden, they're like, I don't want to use the disability services office because of the stigma. But even though I know I need to use it, but they don't use it. So that becomes a barrier to actually succeed in college. And maybe they do succeed in college, but it becomes a barrier after college. For example, we interviewed this young lady. She lives in Alaska. She's actually going to be in our spring 2015 edition. She went to school in Virginia, and she said she went to school. She didn't use the Office for Disability Services, but she told me she has dyslexia. Sorry, I forgot to identify the disability. She has dyslexia. She didn't use the Office for Students with Disabilities, but she said she didn't have a social life because she spent all day trying to figure out what the professors were saying. Even though she went to college, got a bachelor's degree, and guess what happened? When she tried to sit for a teacher certification, she could not pass the examination because all the certification tests are timed, and she could not pass it. So that became a barrier for her. Even though it wasn't a barrier for her while she was an undergrad, now she's trying to get her teacher certification to get a job, and she can't pass the certification part. So that becomes an issue. So these are the things that people with disabilities go through that we don't hear about, we don't talk about. We know it's there because I talked to the college professors the college professors and the directors at the Office for Students with Disabilities Office or Disability Services Office. We talk about it and we know this is an issue. So we try to have these platforms so we can talk about it. Another thing I would love to share with you, I would love to actually talk to people who are in Greek sororities and fraternities and how they are when it comes to having their disabilities. And, I would like to have a panel discussion, not saying nothing bad about the sorority or fraternity, but it's just interesting to have someone that's a part of a sorority or fraternity. And I would like to hear their perspective because having a disability is a totally different perspective compared to someone that doesn't have a disability.
You're right, it is.
Yeah. So I just have so many different concepts and different things that I would love to talk about in the magazine coming up about different issues that people with disability, especially young people and people of color with disability, experience.
Well, that sounds great. If people are listening and they're wondering how can they find your magazine, like can they go purchase it at their local store? How do they get I.D.E.A.L magazine?
Okay, well, they're not at a local store. I'm kind of like Jay-Z now. I'm kind of like selling out the back of my truck of my car, like Jay-Z was selling his CDs. So, but you can go online to our website at www.it'sanidealworld.com, and you can actually purchase a subscription, a copy of the magazine. We're looking for more subscribers to subscribe to our magazine, and as well, we actually have a Kickstarter campaign going on right now. If you go to Kickstarter, Google, put in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and then you can Google support a magazine for the disability community. I.D.E.A.L magazine should come up, and I should come up with them. You'll see my beautiful picture and my video and everything. And our last date to donate, to become a backer for Kickstarter is on November 30th. So we really need the funds because people don't realize that we're a for-profit magazine company, because people hear disabilities, they automatically think we're nonprofit. I'm like, no, I said we don't get funding from the state. We don't get any grants. We're for-profit, and we're like the eyeballs in the disability community, because most organizations in the disability community are nonprofit, and we're like, yeah, we're for-profit. And they're like, oh, okay.
Can you kind of explain to people a lot of understanding?
Exactly, as well as putting it in the mail to get it mailed to you. So it takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of money to do all that. So that's why we started the Kickstarter campaign.
Right. Can you explain to them what the difference is, why you chose to be a for-profit and not a nonprofit, so that they can kind of understand why it's important to donate?
Okay, I wanted to be a for-profit because I didn't want to have a board that controls the magazine, and I didn't want anyone to mess up with the vision. When people can't see your vision, and it's a board of people that may not see your vision as clearly, and they may want to take the magazine in a different direction. I wanted to have a clear vision. I wanted to be for-profit, where I can have all the control over it and run the magazine the way I want it to run. Not having a board above me to say, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do this. I don't like this article. You shouldn't use this word. And I have one of my editors. She's a little bit more reserved than I am. And she's like, we shouldn't use that. I said, these people are using these words, so don't worry about it. I'm sure it'll be fine. But for me, I just wanted total control of the magazine, so I can run it the way I wanted to run it, and I wouldn't have to answer to anyone. When you're a nonprofit, it's a little bit more red tape. You can't do as much as you want to do with it. It's not as flexible with doing the magazine. Now, I'm about to have my first magazine signing, hopefully at Howard University next year.
Oh, wow.
Yes, with Dr. Frederick. As you know, Dr. Frederick is the new president at Howard University. He has sickle cell disease, and he's actually our feature cover story on our spring 2015 edition of the magazine.
We're really looking forward to that.
Yes. So I think that's a good look to have it at Howard University, and to actually bring the magazine signing, just to have him to be this president of the one of the most well-known HBCUs in the country, and to have him on our publication, and to give sickle cell a new breath air for the community. I think this speaks volumes to be on a magazine, on the front cover of a magazine. And I just think it's truly, truly honored, and he's very successful in what he's doing as a person, as a man living with sickle cell. So I always tell people this all the time. I try to give, I'm sorry not to be a little biased, but I try to give sickle cell a little bit more of a push, because I don't feel like
thank you.
I try to give a little bit more push, because sickle cell diseases don't really get the platform as much as other disabilities get a platform. And I try to give a little bit more push, and I try to feature at least one person edition that has sickle cell diseases. We would love to feature more, but I try to highlight at least one person per edition with sickle cell disease. And I have a really good relationship with the sickle cell organizations here in Philadelphia. So,
well, that's great. We appreciate what you do, because I know it takes a lot of work to produce a magazine, and it takes money, it takes resources, it takes people, and I'm just grateful for your vision and for all the hard work that you put into I.D.E.A.L magazine. I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you mentioned that you have a Twitter, you have Facebook. Please let everybody know your handle for Twitter, for Facebook, and any other social networks that you have out.
Okay, on Facebook, well, I.D.E.A.L magazine, if you log into your personal account, you have to put I.D.E.A.L, I.D.E.A.L. It's an acronym for Individuals with Disabilities Express About Rights. So that's what the dots mean. I.D.E.A.L magazine, and on Twitter, it's an I.D.E.A.L world. That's ITS, no apostrophe, AN, I.D.E.A.L, I.D.E.A.L world. And on Tumblr, it's the same thing. It's an I.D.E.A.L world. On Instagram, it's an I.D.E.A.L world. And on LinkedIn, it's I.D.E.A.L magazine. Make sure you have the dots between the letters. But if you go to our webpage, www.itsanidealworld, you'll find all our social media outlets on there. And our website address is ITSANIDEAL world.com. So you go to our homepage and click on our Facebook icon, Twitter, LinkedIn, Tumblr, and Instagram. You'll see all our pages on our Facebook comment and on our homepage. Excuse me. And we do have a blog as well. We do have a blog. Our blogger is Miss Ray. She blogs every week about different things that go on in the disability community. So check her out. And then I'm going to have a blog on there as well, so y'all can see what I've been up to. Because I do college speaking events too at different colleges and universities around the country. So that'll be a good feature, so y'all can see what I've been up to as well.
Oh, sounds awesome. Well, thank you, Zarifa. It's been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. You're full of so much inspiration. So
thank you for having me.
No problem.